Talk to Me, which I really had been looking forward to. I'm a big A24 fan, and let's just say I was not disappointed. This was released July 27th, 2023, from directors Danny and Michael Philippou. I hope I said that correctly, starring Sophie Wilde, Alexandra Jensen, and Joe Bird. And I'm sure many people are already familiar with the premise of Talk to Me because it's been talked about so much. But if you are not, the premise is there is this enchanted hand or cast of a hand that's been passed around amongst groups of people. They're not sure whether it came from a medium, from a Satanist, where this hand came from. But it's become sort of a party game social media sensation, which is just such a clever premise for this film, where the person will sit in a chair, they'll be tied to a chair, and they will take the hand and say, "Talk to me." And at that point, they are able to see someone who is deceased, someone who's passed on. And then they say, "I let you in." And that person takes them over and they become possessed. So I would like to retract my "I do not like possession film" statement, because this is a possession film that I loved, mainly because it was scary. It had those urban legend rules to it, which I really love. Like, you can only be possessed for 90 seconds. Any more than that, and they'll never let you go. It did everything that I really wanted it to do, unlike the Puppet Man. This is what the Puppet Man wishes it were. So again, it's a clever premise. And then the young kids really get into this game of holding this hand. They're all filming it. Excuse me. And it's like it almost feels like it's a high for them. And the way the one character describes it, it does sound like a high. And they keep coming back to touch base with it over and over. So we have our main character, Mia, whose mother passed away. So you kind of know where this is going, and that she's going to want to contact the mother. And she lives with her father, but she has this other family of her friends that have sort of become her adopted family. She spends a lot of time in the home of that family, which is Jade and her brother Riley and the mother Sue. And Mia is almost a sister to Riley as much as Jade is. And we see Riley kind of come under the spell of the hand. And that's really where the film takes its turn and becomes very sad and upsetting. A24 films really do focus a lot on grief and family relationships and how grief can split apart families. So in that sense, Talk to Me is no different than, say, like Hereditary or Midsummer or some of those other films. The end really knocked me out. It was cool. I liked it a lot. I really have nothing negative to say about Talk to Me. I sort of hope it doesn't become a series where we now see new people involved with the hand. I kind of would like this to end where it ended. I think it was fine as is. I think it was one of the scarier offerings from 2023, if not one of the scariest. So Talk to Me is, one of those slumber party films, date films. You really need, you need to watch a horror film. This is the film you want to watch. Since I'm talking A24 films, I decided the sidebar today would be my top 5. And this was not an easy list to make. I really had to do some shuffling. I'm not including Talk to Me in this because I just reviewed it. But I will say, moving forward, Talk to Me will be in the top 5. And number 5 is probably the one that will be knocked out of its place. And that was Saint Maud, which was really dark and interesting. But again, once Talk to Me gets into that top five, Saint Maud will get pushed back into the bottom five of a top 10 for A24. But Saint Maud was really kooky and disorienting because the perspective, the point of view, the main character was so off. You really didn't know what was real, what wasn't a lot of times. The ending was a wow, was definitely a wow. And that's what puts it into the top five for A24. Number four is not a film, it's the series Beef. So it's the only series in the list. And I just loved what it said about anger in America. I love what it said about the desire to connect with other people, but we no longer know how. Post technology, post COVID, post all the issues in our country, it's hard to make deep, meaningful connections. And I felt like Beef was really talking about that. The acting in it was fantastic. The chaos just kept elevating, but it didn't feel too crazy. Like it felt like it made sense. So it was just Beef was thoroughly enjoyable for me. That was number four. Number three was The Green Room. I love that movie. It had me on the edge of my seat. If you've not seen Green Room, please watch it. It's about a punk band who ends up playing a gig in the wrong place, one of the worst places. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to give too much away, but it's really incredibly exciting. Number two, Midsummer. I know a lot of people do not like Midsummer. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more the more I thought about it. I really like what it said about grief. I love the scene where the women are crawling around crying with the main character, and that sort of cathartic moment I thought was so incredibly powerful. And I mean, we've all wanted to stuff somebody in a bear suit and light them on fire. And then number one, I'm sure everyone can guess, Hereditary. It was it was Hereditary. I really don't know what to say about Hereditary beyond it was Hereditary. And if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry you haven't seen it. It's crazy, it's chaos. Again, it's a lot about grief and the impact of grief and how it affects the family. Um, when I first watched it, I was watching it at home, and all the power went off at like the worst part for the power to go off in your home. So that may have been what pushed Hereditary ahead of Midsummer for me because I hit the ceiling. And when I think about Hereditary, I remember that feeling of hitting the ceiling. So those are my top five A24s. Next year at this time, the list might look different, but as of now, those are the top five.